Hi, and welcome to the Texas Division of Emergency Management's Applicant Briefing, Part 1. The Texas Division of Emergency Management, or TDEM, works in conjunction with the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, to administer the Public Assistance Grants Program. My name is Ben Patterson, and I'm the Recovery Section Administrator for TDEM. I'm here today in the State Operations Center in Austin to talk with you about the process of applying for public assistance funding following a disaster event. First, let's look at the differences between an emergency declaration and a major disaster declaration. An emergency declaration can be declared for any instance when the President determines federal assistance is needed to supplement the state of Texas capabilities following or leading up to an emergency event. Assistance may be required to save lives as well as protect property, public health, and safety. Assistance may also be needed to lessen or prevent the threat of a disaster in any part of the United States. Examples of recent emergency declarations have been presidential inaugurations and evacuation efforts prior to a hurricane's landfall. A major disaster declaration is an event that the President believes has caused damage of such severity and magnitude that it is beyond the combined capabilities of state and local governments and disaster relief organizations to respond to. Disaster events can be natural, such as hurricanes, floods, tornadoes, or other weather-related events. Disasters can also be fires, floods, or explosions created by man-made causes, such as technological hazards or terrorist attacks. The following slide shows the public assistance process beginning with the disaster event. Following the event, preliminary damage assessments, or PDAs, are conducted by TDEM and FEMA officials. Based on these assessments, the governor may request a declaration through the FEMA regional administrator. The request is then forwarded to Washington, D.C., where the President will decide whether or not to declare the event and whether the event will be an emergency or disaster declaration. Once a disaster is declared, FEMA will designate the counties eligible for assistance as well as the types of assistance available. If an area is designated for public assistance, or PA, TDM officials will conduct one or more applicant briefings, such as the one you're viewing now, to inform public officials, known as potential applicants, of the process for requesting federal assistance. These potential applicants will then submit a request for public assistance, or RPA, to TDM within 30 days of the date of declaration or designation of the area. The RPA form can be found by going to the TDM website and clicking on FEMA application forms for infrastructure losses. Following receipt of the RPA from TDM, FEMA will schedule a kickoff meeting with the individual applicants. The kickoff meeting is a project-oriented meeting for the applicant, TDM, and FEMA. While the applicant's briefing describes the application process and gives a general overview of the PA program, the kickoff meeting is conducted by FEMA specifically for the applicant and serves as a one-on-one meeting in order to provide a more detailed review of the PA program and the applicant's specific needs. This meeting is the first step in establishing a partnership among FEMA, TDM, and the applicant. After the kickoff meeting, the applicant will begin working with TDM and FEMA public assistance teams to formulate project worksheets, or PWs. These PWs will identify the losses of the applicant. When developing the projects, the PA team and applicant must work together to develop a complete scope of work for each project and an estimate of all direct costs associated with the project. Once the PW has been written, it's reviewed by TDM and FEMA staff to make sure that all the eligibility criteria have been met and that all special considerations have been taken into account. This step is called project review. We will discuss eligibility and special considerations later in this presentation. When processing the PWs and/or grants, FEMA assembles one or more of an applicant's projects together as a grant package or bundle. Before funds are made available to the state, FEMA must ensure that projects comply with all applicable federal laws, regulations, and policies. This is known as project approval. When a grant package is approved, FEMA makes funds available to the state for projects contained in the grant package. The state then notifies the applicant that FEMA has approved the projects and proceeds with the grant signing and reimbursement process. Reimbursement is based on project amounts and project completion. Once this is complete, funds are forwarded then to the applicant. There are many resources available online at FEMA.gov to assist you with the development of PWs. In this presentation, we will discuss the PA Guide and the PA Digest. The PA Guide is also referred to as FEMA 322. It describes provisions and application procedures for the PA program grants. The PA Digest, or FEMA 321, is an easy-to-read, brief summary of the Public Assistance Program policies. Both of these documents are available online or from FEMA publications by calling the number on your screen. Now, let's discuss what criteria needs to exist for an applicant's project to be eligible for reimbursement. This slide shows the basic building blocks of eligibility. They are applicant, facility, work, and cost. Only eligible applicants can receive FEMA reimbursement. Eligible applicants are state and local governments, including special districts and municipal districts, federally recognized tribal governments, and certain private nonprofits, or PNPs. The next building block of eligibility is the facility. In order for the facility to be eligible, it must have been the legal responsibility of the eligible applicant at the time of the disaster. The facility must have also been in active use at the time of the disaster. In addition, the damage claimed must have been a direct result of the declared disaster. Finally, the facility must have been located in a designated county for public assistance. The third building block used to determine eligibility is work itself. The scope of work described in the PW must include items that are disaster-related. The work performed must also be located in a declared county and be the responsibility of the applicant. For example, if the applicant leased the facility to a third party and the terms of the lease indicated the tenant was the responsible party for the maintenance of the facility, then reimbursement for repair work would not be eligible. Lastly, the work must not be fundable by another federal agency. Work is divided into two groups: emergency work and permanent work. Within these groups are 7 specific categories of work that are used to classify projects when writing PWs. Emergency work includes categories A and B. Category A refers to debris removal. Debris removal can be one of the most costly items of work in a disaster. For this reason, applicants that are not familiar with debris removal or with debris procurement, planning, and operations should seek guidance from the TDEM or from their FEMA representative before initiating large-scale debris management activities. For debris removal to be eligible for reimbursement, it must eliminate an immediate threat to life, health, and safety, eliminate an immediate threat of significant damage to improved property, ensure economic recovery of the community, and provide a benefit for the community at large. Some types of debris removal activities are ineligible for FEMA reimbursement. Applicants should consult FEMA 325 Debris Management Guide and work with TDM for further guidance. Category B refers to emergency protective measures. Emergency protective measures are those actions taken by a community before, during, and after a disaster to save lives and to protect the health and safety of the public. They also include measures taken to prevent damage to improved public and private property. Examples of eligible emergency protective measures are warnings of risk and hazards, search and rescue, security, construction of temporary levees, evacuation and sheltering, sandbagging, emergency repairs or demolition, and eligible Emergency Operations Center cost. A more detailed list of eligible emergency protective measures can be found in the PA Digest and the PA Guide. The second group of work categories is permanent work. There are 5 categories of permanent work. Category C, roads and bridges. Category D, water control facilities. Category E, public buildings and equipment. Category F, utilities. And the final category of work is Category G, parks, recreational facilities, and other facilities not fitting into one of the categories mentioned. Each of the 7 categories of work is discussed in detail in the PA Guide and PA Digest. When starting development of a new PW, it's a good idea to begin by referring to these categories. Taking time to learn the basic guidelines concerning a specific category will save time in the long run. The final building block of eligibility is cost. In order for a project to be eligible for reimbursement, the cost must meet several criteria. The first is reasonableness. The cost must be reasonable and necessary to accomplish the eligible work. What determines if a cost is reasonable? In general, a reasonable cost is one that a rational person would accept in the same situation. There are several ways reasonable costs are established, such as the use of historical documentation for similar work, average cost for similar work in the area, published unit cost from national cost estimating databases, and FEMA cost codes, equipment rates, and engineering and design services curves. In addition to reasonableness, costs must be compliant with federal, state, and local requirements for competitive procurement, including 44 CFR, Part 13. Finally, the cost must be reduced by all applicable credits, such as anticipated insurance proceeds and salvage values. In this presentation, we have discussed the public assistance application process and the building blocks of eligibility, including applicant, facility, work and categories of work, and costs. In Part 2 of this presentation, you'll learn about the proper procurement, small and large projects, deadlines, alternate and improved projects, as well as special considerations and appeals. If you have any questions on this material, please visit TDEM's website for more information.